Hello book lovers, and welcome back or welcome to Nat Cat's Bookish Cafe. Today I'm here to do a pretty big book haul. Alright guys, grab yourself a drink, a snack, get comfortable because I have waited a little too long to do a book haul. And also I just realized I don't have any earrings on, so BRB. Alright, so these earrings along with my no shelf control shirt is perfect for this video because I have 60 books to haul today. Yep, I'm sitting here on a little stool in case I look a little hunched because some of the books that are at the top of my shelf, along with a ton of books off of my red shelf, are now on the floor next to me. So I think I did my last haul late July. So this is going to be books that I got in August, September, October, November, December, January, February. So we got a lot of books, 7 months worth of books, and that includes Christmas and my birthday and any books I got with gift cards during that time. So I believe if I counted correctly, we have 10 physical books and then we have 10 books that I got on my Kindle. So I will go ahead and start with the Kindle books just because otherwise I will forget them. I don't really have these in any particular order. I was just kind of going through my list and pulling them. I hope I got them. I think there was like 3 books where I'm like, I'm pretty sure I haven't hauled these and I couldn't find them on my list. So hopefully I didn't miss anything. I do understand this is quite a lot of books. I definitely am planning on making some changes to the way that I purchase books. I talked about that a little bit in a video that I did recently where I was talking about the changes that were occurring to Kindle books. Not that I buy a lot of Kindles, but it's still kind of started that process of me being like, am I buying too many books? I don't know. I mean, buying books is totally a personal choice. For a lot of people, buying books is a separate hobby than reading books. I would say book buying is not a huge hobby for me just because I am such a penny pincher. But at the same time, clearly, I love me a good book. I can't help it. You know, I love them on my shelf. I love to buy them. I love to support bookstores. And I will say most of these books I got from Barnes & Noble, Pango, gifts that I may have received. I think that's where I got most of the books at this point. There was probably a few that I also got off Amazon. I usually try not to buy books off Amazon, but obviously all the Kindle books that I got are from there, though a lot of them are from stuff your Kindle days, and so I didn't actually spend any money on them. But without further ado, since we have so many books to get through, let's go ahead and jump right in. I'm not going to go too in depth about the synopses of these books, especially with some of the stuff, the Kindle books. I probably don't even know what they're about, to be totally honest. They're queer. That's the only thing I can tell you, because when it comes to stuff your Kindle days, I just like click on queer and I'm like, there's so many books, I can't read them all, so I'm not even gonna focus on the straight ones. Just give me the gay ones. So let's go ahead and move my little stool over here, grab my computer, and see the 10 books that I got via Kindle. Yes, so the first one that we have here is called The Terraformers. This is by Annalee Newitz. This, I believe, is a sci-fi story. That's kind of all I really know about it, but I think I was listening to some reviews of sci-fi stories that people enjoyed, and this one was relatively cheap. In fact, I had a credit, so I got it for a whopping 74 cents. So I went ahead and snatched that up. We also have The Free People's Village by Sim Kern, which was only $2, and I'm interested in reading it, so I also snatched that up. This, I also believe, is a sci-fi, pretty high on the commentary, I'm pretty sure. But again, with a lot of these Kindle books, I have gone and forgotten exactly what they're about, but that's okay because we're not going deep into synopses anyway. Up next, we have The Saint of Heartbreak by Morgan Dante. I don't know. I don't know. I have read a Morgan Dante book. In fact, it is the next book on this list, which is Providence Girls, a sapphic horror romance. And I did read this book in December. So I do actually know something about this. This is a sapphic monster romance between a woman who escapes, I guess you could technically call it a cult. Yeah, I would call it a cult, and ends up finding refuge with a woman who is turning into a person of the sea, essentially. And I quite enjoyed it, so I am definitely glad that I have another book by this author. In fact, I have a third book. Look at that. King of Hell, also by Morgan Dante. What is this one about? I also don't know. I don't know. Yeah, usually I feel like with most of the books on my shelf, I kind of know what they're about because I'm spending money on it. And so I want to make sure it's something I know and like. But with these ones, these are all stuff for your Kindle book. So I got them for free. So I guess I just didn't look too deep into it. And next we have In the Care of Magic by Robin Jill Margaret. Again, no idea. Then we have Sink Into Her by Elaine Daniels. Cool. Under the Lupin Moon by A. Knightley. I'm assuming that has to do with werewolves. Convergence by T.D. Cloud. Beats me. And then we have Blood, Flesh, and Magic by Viono Oniomo. I just DNF'd a book by them like a few days ago, but I did say that I really like their characters and that I'm interested in reading more books by them. This one was just a little too focused on the smut and the horniness, which to me, I love a good smut scene, but I need a little bit more balance. You know, I can't just have it be horny, 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 200 pages in a row. Eventually I'm just like, oh my gosh, my asexual brain cannot relate. So those are some of the Kindle books. Those were all Stuff Your Kindle books except for the first two. And then I don't think I had any others. So yes. All right, let's go ahead and move into the physical books. These I should know a little bit more about. Fingers crossed. So I'm looking at the two books beside me. I don't know where we're gonna begin. I guess we'll start here. Let's start with Cole McCade. So we have 4 books here because I've gone ahead and finished the series. Now, these 3 books are the ones that were not on my list, but these were gifted to me by a subscriber, the wonderful Lon, and they were not on the list. So I was like, that is why I'm a little nervous that I went and forgot something. But these are the last books in this series and I read them in December. So I know that I got them after July. So this is, let's see, which order are these in because they're kind of all over the place. So this is episode 10 and that is Backdraft. And then this is episode 11, which is Crescendo. And then we have The Hatter's Game Part 1 and 2, which are books 12 and 13. And this is like a very long series, as you can tell, since there are 13 books in the series. And it is essentially following Malcolm and Sanjay, and they are homicide detectives. Each of these books follows a different crime that they are solving, but it also follows their relationship. And I love it. I love it. I went ahead and finished the first season, and now I need to go ahead and see about starting to buy the books for the second season. These are the books that I have been buying from Amazon. I'll have to see if I can buy them directly from Cole McCade or if I can buy them somewhere else, because I think most of his books are still self-published. I think he has maybe one book that's been traditionally published that I've seen at Barnes & Noble. But, you know, I am obviously trying to buy from Amazon less, but if that's the only place that I can support Cole McCade, that's where I'll be, I guess. Oat milk chai latte with some maple syrup. Yes, please. All right, so let's talk about this book. This is actually one of the most recent books I bought when I went to Barnes and Noble because I had some gift cards from my birthday and Christmas. This is called If Cats Disappeared from the World by Genki Kawamura, I hope is kind of what we're going for here. Look at that. Isn't that so cute? It's just like this teeny tiny little book, and this book honestly was giving me the Traveling Cat Chronicle vibes, which is like right behind me, right here. And this was my favorite book of 2024. So when I saw this book, I was like, yes, give me. We are following a man who has, I believe, been diagnosed with a terminal illness, but he has been told that he will get an extra day of life in exchange for something disappearing off of the face of the earth, like no longer existing. So it is just him and his cat, and I have a feeling that it'll probably make me cry just like the Traveling Cat Chronicles, but it just sounds like a very sweet yet thought-provoking story. Speaking of thought-provoking, this is a book that I ordered from Barnes & Noble. I think they were doing their 50% off hardback sale. This is a book I've been interested in. It is called Red. It is by Annie Cardy. As you can kind of see, it is kind of like a Scarlet Letter retelling. That is a book that I read many a year ago. I remember not loving it, but we'll see. In this book, we are following a young girl who is moving to a new town with her mother to live with her grandmother. And her grandmother kind of said, hey, you guys can move in, but you have to start coming to church with me. And it seems her mother isn't really happy about that, but our girl here finds a great sense of community. She makes some friends, she joins the choir, but one day they find out something that our character has done, and I believe she's gotten an abortion. And once the members of the church find this out, they really kind of ostracize her, and she kind of loses everything she built here. She ends up finding some teens that hang out in like the music room, and kind of gives her the opportunity to kind of put her life back together. I think that it'll be very interesting to kind of see the commentary on abortion, and especially like the hostility that people who make the personal choice to get an abortion face from specifically the church. So I've heard good things about this book, and hopefully I can get to it soon. I then have some books that I got from Pango. The first one is going to be The Dragon, or just Dragon Unleashed by Grace Draven. This is the second book to Phoenix Unbound, and this is a fantasy romance. I really love Grace Draven's work. I think her work is so beautifully written, and that the romances are just the perfect balances of romantic with just like a smidge of sexiness going on in it. This one I believe is going to be between, I want to say in the first book she had pretty good healing abilities, and then also a dragon, I'm assuming. That would make sense. So I am very excited to continue with this series. Up next, we have Written in the Stars. This is by Alexandria Bellefleur. And these books I've been wanting to read for a while because, as you can tell, there's a Space Needle. These are set in Washington, and I live in Washington. So I have been very excited to check these out. And so I was ordering a book from someone, and they had this book, and so I decided to go ahead and snatch it up alongside the other book, which I'll talk about in just a second. And this is a sapphic contemporary story. I've been wanting to read more sapphic stories since I don't read too many of them, and I have heard relatively good things about it. This seems to be a fake dating situation. It seems like we are between kind of one of those like no nonsense people and an astrologist. So personality wise, they don't really hit it off in the beginning, but it seems like they grow on each other. So I'm excited to check it out. From the same account, the book I actually went in to purchase was Heat Wave by TJ Klune. This is the third and final book in the Extraordinary series. This is a sci-fi queer story, obviously from TJ Klune. They're all queer. And I've been having such a wonderful time with this series. It makes me smile, it makes me laugh, and I do have this here on my March TBR, so I am super excited to be getting to it. And then the final Pango book, we have Mary by Nat Cassidy. This is a horror book that I've been wanting for a long time, but every time I go to Barnes & Noble, it's like $21, and I feel like for a paperback, even though this is like an unusually large one, that's just like too much money for me. So when I saw it on Pango for less than $7, I snatched it up, and it's in really good condition. This is a horror that focuses on menopause, and I have heard great things about this author as well as the specific story, so I am really excited to check it out. This one I ended up getting at Value Village, and that is The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin. I have the third book in the series, and now I have the second book. I figured since it was in good condition and I know I'm going to read the series, I will go ahead and snatch it up, but I do not own the 5th season, which is the first book in the series, so I still need to go ahead and get a copy of that. But this is N.K. Jemisin's, I would almost say, her most well-known series. I feel like this is the one that I hear most people talk about. It's also seems to be one of her more complex series, so I'm definitely nervous to get into it, but it's definitely got sci-fi vibes where we seem to be living in a world where the planet is constantly facing like end of day scenarios with like storms and earthquakes and all that jazz. So I'm excited to finally get to the series. Will it be this year? I'm not quite sure. All right, some Barnes and Noble books. I will say that my parents just pulled up with the trailer to do some yard work. I'm not sure exactly what they're going to be doing, but if you hear any ruckus, that is what's going on. It's a beautiful day. They're out here working, and I'm out here buying too many books. So up first, we have, hello. Oh, all right, guys. Sorry about that. I locked my parents out and then realized one of my cats threw up on the carpet, because why would they throw up on the hardwood floor? That would make life too easy. So getting back to, I think I was talking about Barnes & Noble books, we have The Nightmare Before Christmas by Sarah Rush. Now, I probably will not read this until December or maybe like late November, but I figured I would just go ahead and grab it with the cute little sprayed edges. I have heard primarily good things about this. I did hear someone complain about the fact that it seemed to have so much world building in it instead of it being like primarily romance focused, which as a girl who enjoys world building, I was like, you know what? That actually makes me want to read it even more. So this seems to be a forbidden romance between the Prince of Christmas and the Prince of Halloween, and I am very intrigued indeed. Up next, we actually got the book I'm currently reading, and we have Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews. I was watching a video yesterday by Gabby Reads, and she was reading this book on a recommendation by a friend, and she was like going absolutely feral over it. And I was like, you know what? This book is on my TBR now, and I don't want to hear too many of her thoughts until I've read it. And so I paused her video and I picked this book up last night actually, and I was like, I'll just read a couple chapters, and then I ended up reading 100 pages, and I'm on page 120 because I read a couple while slurping down my smoothie this morning. I am absolutely in love with this writing. This is like a queer horror story where we are following some boys that are fighting these monsters that are coming alive from the drawings that one of the boys is doing, inspired by the other boys' stories. And I just gotta read you this line. Like, I don't know if you can see, there's like this one little tab here because I don't really annotate my books or anything just because I have like ugly annotation skills, so I don't want to ruin a gorgeous book. But I I had to just like mark this because essentially they have fought a monster and one of them is injured. Well, they're both injured, and so they're like, you know, healing each other and stuff. And it says, for a vicious moment, Andrew thought about slipping his fingers into Thomas's cut, taking hold of his rib and breaking it, pulling the soft, crumbling bone from his chest and sewing it into his own. They'd be forever together, rib against rib, fused in gore and bone and adoration. My soul almost ascended to heaven when I read that. I was just... The writing in here is incredible. The obsession, spectacular. What is it? Give me 17 more. Is it 17? I can't remember the number, but anyway, loving it. I also ended up getting The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. This is a series that I heard quite a few people highly praising. I believe the third and final book just came out last year and it made it onto some people's favorite books of the year. And what really kind of got me to pick up this book, and I really hope it was the right book because there's a couple high fantasies that are kind of given similar vibes that were going around, but someone mentioned that it has a religious horror aspect, and I personally love me some religious horror. That's kind of all I know about it. I'm like looking here at the back and there's no synopsis, so like where is the synopsis? It just says murder mystery meets grimdark political fantasy, so that sounds really interesting. So this is a debut novel. Wow. Yeah, so I'm not 100% sure specifically what this is about, but I have been wanting to get into higher fantasy, so I am excited to get to this. Something maybe a little bit less serious, or maybe still kind of serious. We have a Donmi, and that is going to be The Husky and His White Cat, Shizun. And this is by, and I have not looked up their name yet, so I apologize if I completely butcher this, Rao Bao Bu Chi Rao. I'm so sorry. So essentially, as you can see here, I mean, the lighting is not making it that great. We have Heaven's Official Blessing up there. So I have read a Donmi before, and I've been wanting to pick up a new series, and I recently heard some really good things about this one. This seems to be, we are following this man who became really powerful and honestly kind of evil, and then he dies, and he is kind of I don't want to say reincarnated, because he's kind of like reborn as himself in the past and given like this opportunity to live his life again. And he decides like this time he's going to do everything better. And it doesn't really seem like he wants to be a better person. He just wants to like take care of the competition a little quicker. And that includes one of his, I believe he's like a teacher. Yeah, so he has this teacher because he's like, I'm going to take out everyone who brought about my downfall and treated me like a dog. And that includes this really hot teacher of mine. And yeah, I'm assuming that it is a romance between the two of them. If it's anything like the other Donmi I read, it is going to be a slow burn. So slow, like creeping a lava flow. So I'm really excited to check it out. These always have such like beautiful art in them. I mean, look at that. They're beautiful. Talking about beautiful art, we have Blue Moon Rising by Ruby Dixon. Look at the stunning sprayed edges. And then we have the art on the inside, and it has a cute little cover. This is the last book that I have and probably ever will purchase from Target because we are not shopping there right now and maybe ever. So this is obviously a monster romance between this woman and a minotaur. She is part of a family that is wealthy but seems to be losing money faster than they're getting it, and she's like, I'm not about to be broke. So she goes to school to become like an artifact master, I believe, of magical artifacts. However, it seems like the society doesn't really approve of women doing this, and so they require her to have a chaperone to attend this school. And we then have this Minotaur guy who's about to go through his, I don't know if it's called blue moon or some sort of moon phase, where he gets kind of hot and horny, and he needs someone that he can let all these feelings out on, and he's not really interested in purchasing like a sex worker for this time. He's looking for something a little bit deeper than that, and so he and her kind of make this deal. So I have heard, the only thing I've heard about this is that they didn't love the romance, but that they really enjoyed the world building. So I'll be interested to see what I think about it. Next, we have 3 books that I got from Aardvark. Aardvark is a book subscription box that is similar to a book of the month. I believe that their books are $17.99, and then you can get an add-on for $10. And they, I thought, had slightly more diverse picks than book of the month. I have only gotten their books one time, and I ended up getting 2 add-ons, so a total of 3 books, but I can definitely see myself coming back every once in a while and picking up some books from them because they are really good quality in my opinion, and they definitely have some titles that I'm interested in. Not sponsored. So I ended up getting these in December, I believe. Yes, it was December. So the book that I chose for that month's pick was The Resurrectionist, and that is by A. Ray Dunlap. This is a historical, I think it's kind of giving mystery vibes. We have a man who's looking to get into the health field, and back in the day you just kind of needed to find bodies to do your practicing on, and he ends up finding a man who is able to procure these bodies for him, and then he kind of finds out that it's not really being done legally, and he is kind of pulled into the world of body snatching. So it does seem to be a queer story, so I am really intrigued. Let me see when this takes place. 1828 in Scotland. So I am hoping that this has kind of like stalking Jack the Ripper vibes, and I'm really excited to give it a go. The first of the 2 add-ons I did, actually let's do this one, is gonna be The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. This is a horror story that has been taking the internet by storm. I have heard pretty much only good things about this. We seem to be following a Korean, yes, woman whose mother has gotten a new boyfriend. Their father had kind of up and left them, and their mother has not been doing very good since then. And now she's dating a white man, and he is definitely one of those white men who definitely fetishizes Korean or just Asian women, or probably just women in general. And her mother had always told them to eat the eyes of the fish because it brings like good luck. And our character starts to become very obsessed with the ideas of eyeballs. So I'm intrigued to see where this goes. The final book from Aardvark is going to be Invocation by S.T. Gibson. I am very nervous about this. I feel like S.T. Gibson came onto the scene swinging with A Dowry of Blood, and everyone and their mother was obsessed with it. And ever since then, their books have either been disliked or very controversial. Like, some people like them, some people don't. This one I've heard kind of 50-50. It seems to be a polyamorous story once again. We seem to be following a guy who thinks he's being possessed by a demon or demons, and he needs to seek help from his ex-boyfriend and his wife. So we'll see how it goes. I did hear some people's complaints is that it focuses too much on the relationship instead of the fact that he's being possessed by a demon. I can see how that could be frustrating, but I will give it a try and make my own opinion. All right, up next, this one I either got for my birthday or Christmas. It was a gift, and that is going to be Slewfoot by Braun. This is a book that I have read. Usually it kind of like sits right here, but I replaced it for the time being since I am holding it, and it has the gorgeous paintings in here that depict some of the monsters that are present in the story. This is very much I support women's rights, but I also support women's wrongs stories. If you love a revenge story, yes, this is very much giving, like, if the witches really had an alliance with the devil, the Puritans wouldn't have survived the night. They would have been very much screwed if witches were actually out here doing the things people said witches were doing. So I really enjoyed this story and glad to have it on my shelf. Another gift and another book that I have read and loved, very different vibes. Kind of. And that is The Snake Falls to Earth by Darcy Little Badger. This is a story about a coppermouth snake who lives in the spirit realm. He's able to turn into a boy or he's able to turn into a snake, and he needs to go onto a journey to the human world because his little frog friend is very sick, and it seems that because of the type of frog that his friend is in the human realm is facing extinction, and that's having a negative impact on the spirit version that represents these frogs. And he meets a girl there who is concerned about her family members' well-being because there are tornadoes coming to their home, and this family member is unable to leave her land without becoming incredibly ill, and so they need to find a way to keep her safe. And I love this story. I thought it was so cute. I loved all the characters. Oh my gosh. I listened to the audiobook and I would highly recommend that, but I am also glad to have this story on my shelves. Another book that was a gift but that I have not read yet is going to be Beartown by Frederick Bachman. I have never read a book by this author before. This is definitely the book of his that I'm the most interested in, but I'm very intimidated by it just because, one, the series books seem to just be like one of those series where they get like longer and longer, but also I believe it deals with sexual assault, and I'm very nervous to read about that topic. However, I have heard incredible things. We seem to be following a small town and their hockey team that is kind of good enough to put them on the map, but then a very terrible event kind of throws a wrench in everything, and the town is kind of divided about what to do moving forward. So this seems to be one of those books that's going to make you cry. I will definitely have to be in the right headspace to check it out. Another gift is going to be A Long Time Dead by Samara Brigger. This is a sapphic vampire story. That's kind of all that I know about it. I believe that our main character was a sex worker and she just kind of like woke up as a vampire one day and is being cared for and kind of like guided by this other female vampire, and I believe a romance starts between them. But this cover, imagine being this beautiful. Like, look at her hair, her perfectly painted lips, like, wow. Wow, wow, wow. Some people just have it all. And the next book I bought is Crisperd and Sear by TJ Klune. I have not read this book yet, and I haven't got it on my TBR yet this year, but I really want to read it. So hopefully I get to it very soon. This is kind of his sci-fi darker story. I would say leaning a little bit towards horror. I would say that it's some of his best work. I think that the way that the character's mind works really well with TJ Klune's writing. We are definitely following a character who is kind of losing his mind. We are living in a post-apocalyptic society. The world was destroyed by nuclear warfare about 100 years ago, and we are following a character who lives primarily on his own with his dog and an AI android that is kind of also losing its mind. And one day he ends up capturing a member of this group called the Rabbits that is known for being cannibals, and he and this rabbit kind of start to realize that maybe they would benefit from being on the same side because there are a lot of forces working against them. So I had a great time with it. If you like a knife to the throat scene, then this is definitely the book for you. The first book is called Withered and Sear. Up next, we have a nonfiction book that I started, I want to say, who even knows, maybe in October, November, and I have not picked it up since. I just read, I think, the first, not the first chapter, but it looks like kind of the first part of the book, and that is Atomic Habits by James Clear. This is a very well-beloved book, and I will definitely return to it, but I'm just not really in the mood for it right now, so I just kind of keep it on my currently reading list. And yeah, it is a nonfiction book, just essentially about changing small habits instead of like setting big goals, but that these small habit changes will go ahead and help you achieve those goals. I'd like to say we're almost done, but you know, we're getting there. I'd say we're halfway through, more than halfway through. So yeah. So we have some more books here that I got at Value Village. Gotta love a good thrift. And I ended up finding The Master and Margarita by, I cannot read that writing, so I gotta find me Mikhail Bulgakov, by Mikhail Bulgakov. I do not know how to say Russian names, apparently. Not surprisingly, because I'm not Russian. So this is one of the books that I put into my challenge cup. I believe this was supposed to be the classic. And when I saw it at Value Village, I was just like, might as well. Plus, it's just like a really cool cover. This is a Russian classic. It's translated. From what I remember, it is taking place in a Russian village where the devil shows up with a witch and a talking black cat, I believe, and they kind of cause mayhem in this town that I believe doesn't believe in Christianity. However, there are two people that are exempt from the devil's shenanigans, and I believe that is the master, who is currently in prison because he was seeking to preach, maybe, I don't remember, and the woman that loves him. So I'm interested, but I'm also scared. We then have the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. I have never read this author before. I have always been kind of nervous to pick up his work because I hear such mixed things, and even it seems like the people that like his stuff only like some of his stuff, and so I'm just like, I don't know. I really don't know. He seems to be the kind of person that puts like a twist on horror, or almost makes, I don't want to say like straight up a parody of it, but I don't know. He seems to just have a unique way of writing horror. This one I would say is one that I'm quite interested in. We seem to be following a group of suburban women, and then a vampire moves into town. I'm thinking it has like a commentary on like patriarchy and strict gender roles. I can't quite remember, but I'm interested. And plus, I like this cover. It's appealing to me. Up next, I picked up Beautiful Country by Quan Julie Wang. And was this a nonfiction? It's a memoir. From an astonishing new talent, Beautiful Country puts readers in the shoes of an undocumented child living in poverty in the richest country in the world. So this should probably be on my nonfiction shelf. But yes, I went ahead and picked this book up just because I do enjoy an occasional memoir, and I figured a book from the perspective of an immigrant was a great one to pick up nowadays. And then we had The Water Dancer by Ta-Nehisi Coates. And what was this one about? It says a boldly conjured debut novel about a magical gift, a devastating loss, and an underground war for freedom. So this book seems to follow a man who has some sort of magical abilities that only show up every once in a while. He is a slave and he ends up almost drowning one day, and these magical abilities kind of save his life, and he ends up running away and joining this group of people who are fighting this underground war against the slavers. So I am interested in this. I am a little nervous because, you know, I would say this isn't quite fantasy, and I feel like sometimes books that have just like a vague magical aspect to them, almost giving kind of magical realism vibes, aren't always mine. But at the same time, I've heard good things about this book, and the synopsis of it has intrigued me for some time. Then I believe these ones are some books that I got for Christmas. The first one is Under the Udula Tree by Chinelo Okparanta. This one I think is also one of my challenge books. This is a sapphic story, and it is between two girls in Nigeria, and it seems they kind of meet each other, but they start to see that there are consequences to loving another woman, and it's just kind of following both of these girls. It seems like they are potentially living in a time of civil war as well, so I am really excited for this book. Obviously it has high praise, so excited to have it on my list, and I'll definitely be getting to it this year since it's on or in my challenge cup. Up next, Beloved by Toni Morrison. I have never read a Toni Morrison book, and that does seem like a little bit of a crime. So this is the one that I am the most interested in. This seems to be kind of a ghost story. We have a woman who had killed her child while they were in slavery because she did not want her child to live a life of slavery. However, slavery has ended, I believe, and she is now free, and she and her child are living in a home haunted by this child that she killed. This sounds like it's gonna be hella intense, but obviously heard primarily good things about it, and Toni Morrison, I'm really excited to be getting into her work. Up next, we have another non-fiction, and that is Femina, and that is by Yanya Ramirez. This is telling the stories of some forgotten women that have just played a big part in history, but were just kind of written out of it. So I'm interested in that for obvious reasons, and I hope that it is an interesting read. I'm definitely not the most well versed in history. I mean, I feel like I'm one of those people who like knows enough about history to be like, you can't repeat it, but also like detail wise it's all a little muddy for me. But I'm excited these women are getting their moment in the spotlight like they deserve. Next, we have All the Things We Don't Talk About by Amy Feltman. So this book sounds really interesting to me. It's not like what I usually gravitate to, but there was something about the synopsis. But we seem to be following a young person who has been raised by their neurodivergent father. Their mother has kind of left, and they are kind of navigating their life and their gender. And one day, I believe their mother kind of crashes back into their life, and potentially even their mother's ex-girlfriend or something. It just sounds like it's gonna be messy. It sounds honestly like something that's gonna be like hitting me right in the feels. So I am really intrigued to see what I think of this book. Up next, another gift, but this one I have already read, and that is The Devil's Highway by Luis Alberto. I love this nonfiction book. This follows a group of people that had been led by a coyote across the US-Mexico border, and they unfortunately ended up getting lost in the Arizona desert. Yes, the Devil's Highway. Yeah, so the Devil's Highway is an area in Arizona that is just desert, and unfortunately a lot of them end up passing away during this journey. And I just think that if you are at all interested in the going-ons of the border and the immigration experience, then you definitely need to check this out. Up next, a couple books that I purchased while in Coopville on Whidbey Island. I went there with a friend and had to grab a couple souvenir books. The first one is going to be Sunbringer by Hannah Canner. This is the second book to God Killer. This is a fantasy story. All of them are relatively short. The third one, I believe, is coming out here in March, and I have pre-ordered it. So hopefully I can get to this one pretty soon. We are following God Killers. We are following ex-knights that are going on a new quest. We are following a young girl who is attached to a young god, and they are not sure why they are bound together. It is a good time. There is tons of representation in here when it comes to sexuality as well as disability reps. So highly recommend. And then we got Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young. This seems to be kind of a mystery slash romance story where we are following a girl who ended up staying in her small town. I don't believe she wanted to, but her friend had been murdered there, and that kind of pushed her life off the rails a little bit. And one day her ex-boyfriend, who had actually been accused of killing her friend, comes back into town, and the two of them kind of start to reconnect and look into what actually happened, and that causes them to uncover some secrets about their town. So this is definitely giving more like fall vibes, so hopefully I can get to it later this year. Up next, we have a book that I have read and loved, so I went ahead and purchased that, and that is Camp Damascus by Chuck Tingle. This is an adult horror story. I feel like it could be considered almost like, not young adult, but maybe if they did the new adult genre, it would kind of fit in there, because I think her character is maybe like 20, but because of the way she was raised, she definitely feels like more sheltered and young than that. And I sometimes felt like this book didn't quite creep into adult territory, but it was pretty creepy. Essentially, this takes place in a religious town that is known for the fact that there is a conversion camp right next to them, and they're very proud of this, but it starts to seem like maybe the things that are happening at this conversion camp are even worse than what is usually happening at a conversion camp. So really enjoyed this, and I know that it is highly regarded along with other Chuck Tingle books. So this stack of books here, my mom has a family member who every once in a while sends us a big box of books because she's a avid reader herself, and these are some of the books from the box that I decided I was interested in. The first one is The Night Watchman by Louise. Is that an R? Is that a D or is that an O? Wait, okay, sorry. Sometimes I feel like I have trouble with like fonts. Okay, so Louise Erdrich. I have to admit, I'm not really sure what this book is about. It was just familiar to me, and it's by an Indigenous author, and I'm trying to read more Indigenous authors, so I went ahead and snatched it up. We then have The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. Once again, not 100% sure what this book is about, but it seems to be like a classic, one of those classic sci-fi stories, so I figured I would pick this up as well. We have The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie. This one, even though I just got it, is already on my These Books Will Self-Destruct list, just because I'm not 100% sure if this is my cup of tea, especially since it's young adult, but I have read Sherman Alexie before and enjoyed his writing, so I figured I would give it a try. We then have a nonfiction, which is called Crazy Brave by Joy Harjo. I believe she's usually doing poetry. Yes, so she's usually writing poetry, but this is her memoir. I'm not really a poetry person, but I am interested in her memoir, again by a Indigenous author. And then the last one is going to be The End of October by Lawrence Wright. This seems to be kind of like a pandemic story. I don't believe it's inspired by COVID, because I think it might be pre-COVID when this came out. Well, it came out in 2020. So he might have started writing it beforehand and it was just really bad timing on his part. I personally am not too bothered by books that talk about pandemics. So I am intrigued to go ahead and try this one up. Yeah, so it says an electrifying thriller about a mysterious virus bringing the world to its knees. Yeah, and it seems like we're following someone who is investigating this on behalf of the CDC. So definitely, if you are someone who doesn't like to hear about COVID, you probably shouldn't pick this one up, even though I'm not sure if that's even what inspired it, but it's pretty close. All right, we are on to our last stack, guys. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. So we have To Catch a Firefly by Emmy Sanders. This ended up being one of my top books of the year. I ended up reading it on KU, but I did want to go ahead and snatch myself up a physical copy. This is a contemporary romance, male-male romance, and it features a neurodivergent main character who has select mutism. I love these characters so much. It is a best friends to lovers story. Up next, we have The Prince's Gambit by C.S. Becat. I bought the first and third book in this series at Powell's earlier in the year, not this year, last year, and they didn't have this one, so I ended up ordering this one from Barnes and Noble, and these are just like the new covers. This is the second book to the Captive Prince series, which is a male fantasy story. It is not super heavy on the romance. It is primarily political, and I love every moment of it. Up next, we have The Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor, which I have not read yet, and I really need to because I'm already starting to forget what happened in the first book. I do think I did a spoiler-filled vlog, so maybe I'll just rewatch my vlog. But this is the second book to the Strange the Dreamer duology, in which we are following a man named Strange, I'm assuming. See, I'm already forgetting his name. Laszlo. His name is Laszlo. He is obsessed with the city of Weep, which seems to have kind of disappeared out of people's memories, and everyone is just like, oh, it's a fictional place, but he can't help but feel like maybe it was like a real place. And one day some people from Weep end up showing up and they need some help with a problem that they're having in their kingdom, village, town, whatever you want to call it, and that sets them off on a very exciting journey. I had a great time with it, so I would like to get to the second book. I really would. We have The Phoenix Unbound by Grace Draven. I went ahead and talked about the second book, which I picked up from Pango, so I picked this one up as well. This was a 5-star read for me. I had a really great time with it. We are following a woman who has the ability to burn and then come back to life, and this kingdom requires annual sacrifices from each village, and her village sends her to the sacrifice every year, and she also has the ability to like change her appearance, and so they kind of do this so that, I mean, she just comes back to life, so they're like, it's not that bad, but it is bad, especially because burning alive, even if you come back, is a terrible experience. And she ends up getting scooped up by this gladiator who is like, hey, I know that you're the same person who has been coming for the last 5 years, and I'm gonna use you to get the hell out of here. And so the two of them escape, and he ends up taking her to his people because he believes having her and her powers will help him gain his position as chief back, and it is a slow burn romance between them. Up next, we have Pretty by Keith F. Miller Jr. I am so excited to read this book. It is a contemporary story where we are following these two men who are in love with each other. However, they are living in very difficult times, and there's just things happening in their life that are potentially going to tear them apart. It seems that one of them is part of the Black Diamonds. I would say they're honestly giving like Black Panther vibes, where they are an organization that seeks to protect the Black community, but they are facing some violence and there are some people killing these members. And so that is something that these two boys are having to figure out in hopes of stopping that violence while simultaneously keeping each other safe during these trying times. I am very excited to get to it. I put it on my spring TBR, so hopefully I can get to it in the next couple months. Then we have Canto Contigo, and this is by Johnny Garza Villa. This is an author that I have read and enjoyed in the past. I believe I gave their last book 5 stars. In this book, we are following a young man who is part of his high school's mariachi band. And one day it seems that he gets some competition for being one of the best players in the mariachi band, and things are complicated by the fact that this competition is someone that he has had a romantic encounter with. So I'm excited to get this read, and look at this stunning cover. Oh my gosh, 2 more books, guys. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to get this done with, but I'm not done. I'm gonna have to edit it, which is really gonna suck. First up, we have Beholder by Ryan LaSala. This is an author who wrote The Honeys, I believe. Am I correct? Yeah, this is the author that wrote The Honeys, which is a horror YA story that I really enjoyed. In this book, we seem to be following a character who goes to this party and someone shoves him into the bathroom and they're like, do not leave. And he's like, what? And then a bunch of screaming happens and everyone dies except for him. And it seems like there is some weird stuff. Something evil is waking up in the walls of New York City, and it's compelling victims towards violence and self-destruction. So it has something to do with mirrors, I believe, and I'm really excited to check this out. And then the final book, oh my god, we have Simon Sort of Says by Erin Bow. I don't even know. I feel like I'm gonna be like putting off reading this book over and over again because I'm so scared of it. Essentially, we are following a young boy. This is a middle grade book, and he has experienced a school shooting. So essentially, he was the sole survivor of his classmates. His classmates and his teacher were all killed in this mass shooting, and obviously that has severely traumatized him. And as the sole survivor, he is also being approached a lot by the media, and it's just becoming too much for him. And so his family takes him. They move to this community that doesn't allow like internet, Wi-Fi, that kind of stuff, because they're trying to communicate with aliens and they want to make sure that there's nothing interfering with that. And he kind of finds this new friend group, and it's just kind of about him trying to put his life back together. And I just know that it's going to make me cry because school shootings are a really big issue here in the US, even if we don't talk about them as much because we have all these other terrible things happening. So I am very nervous to check this out, especially since it's a middle grade. I'm assuming that it'll handle this topic in a way for a younger audience, but that won't make it any more heartbreaking. So all right, guys, what the hell? Yeah, so I think I said this last time I did a book haul where I'm like, hey, I need to do book hauls more frequently so that we don't have to talk about 60 books and sit here for over an hour. But we'll see how that happens, especially as my buying style might change a little bit over the course of this next year, just with some of the goals that I have. I will definitely try to do a haul when I have less than 60 books to talk about. I feel like 20 is like a good number, so I just need to keep a closer eye on it because I didn't think I had that many, and then I was like, oh, oops. So let me know if you've read any of these books. Most of the books I talked about I just haven't read yet. Oops. A few of them have. I would love to know if you loved any of these books and which ones I should be prioritizing, because looking around, I definitely still have a lot of books to be reading. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for sitting here and listening to me list off all of these books. I hope my voice didn't get too croaky towards the end there. And as always, guys, thank you so much for supporting my channel by watching my videos, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!